Why are you afraid of Friday the 13th? Almost nobody knows that this superstitious fear didn't start with curses or magic. It started with money. At dawn on Friday, October 13th, 1307, the most powerful bank in Europe was liquidated in a matter of hours. Its leaders were arrested, and its vaults were emptied. This is the story of the world's first state-sponsored corporate raid. And what happens to your assets when a government runs out of gold? To understand why the king acted so brutally, you have to understand the sheer scale of the Templar wealth. They weren't just a church order, they were a sovereign state within a state. They owned thousands of estates, castles, and massive fleets of merchant ships across the Mediterranean. They paid zero taxes to any king, answering only to the Pope in Rome. Their financial network was so vast that they managed the royal treasuries of both England and France. In the eyes of a bankrupt monarch, they didn't just have money, they were the money. The Knights Templar began as an army of monks protecting pilgrims. But over 2 centuries, they evolved into a financial empire. They invented the foundation of the modern financial world: checks, deposits, and international wire transfers. You could deposit gold in Paris, get a parchment receipt, and withdraw your funds in Jerusalem, with zero risk of being robbed on the road. Soon, they began lending money to entire nations. They became too big to fail. But their greatest power was the weapon of debt. The Templars didn't just store gold, they mastered leverage. When European kings needed to finance crusades or build castles, the Templars were the only institution capable of liquidating massive capital instantly. They structured complex loan agreements, masking interest rates as rent or expenses to bypass the Catholic Church's strict bans on usury. Slowly, silently, the crowns of Europe became trapped in a financial web. Philip IV realized that as long as the Templars existed, he was a king only in name. France was ruled by King Philip IV. He fought endless wars with England, and his treasury was completely empty. He tried debasing the currency, lowering the gold content of coins, but it only caused hyperinflation and riots. Philip's main problem was that he was the single largest debtor to the Knights Templar. The sum was astronomical. Paying it back was impossible. So the king came up with a brutal solution. If you can't pay your debt, you must destroy your banker. In absolute secrecy, royal officials sent sealed letters across the country, ordered to be opened simultaneously on the night of October 12th. The Templars were accused of heresy and dark rituals, the perfect pretext to bypass Vatican laws. At dawn, thousands of knights across France were seized. Their properties, lands, castles, and most importantly, their gold, were confiscated by the crown. A centuries-old business model was crushed by the edge of a sword. In March 1314, the final chapter of the raid was written in blood. The Grand Master of the Templars, Jacques de Molay, was dragged to a small island on the Seine River in Paris to be burned at the stake. As the flames consumed him, his voice cut through the smoke, screaming a terrifying prophecy. He cursed King Philip and the Pope, summoning them to meet him before God's judgment seat within a year. The horror is, it worked. Within 30 days, the Pope died in agony. Within 8 months, King Philip suffered a mysterious stroke during a hunt and collapsed dead. The financial empire was gone, but the debt was paid in blood. King Philip erased his debt with a single blow. But he never found the Templar gold. Legend says the Order's treasures were smuggled out of Paris that very night. 700 years have passed. Iron armor has been replaced by expensive suits, and stone castles by glass skyscrapers. But the mathematical lesson remains the same. When a nation's debt becomes unpayable, the rules of the game change instantly. Your property is only sacred until the government runs out of money. The mathematics of panic is exactly the same. Subscribe to Wealth Lab X-Ray to decode the past and look behind the curtain of big money.